Awanna Holdings, and we have our guest here today, Miss Reneika Lightbourne from Advanta IRA, and we'll get into her in a little bit and introduce her. But you know what I have to do is I have to do a little bit of housekeeping. So I will go through and do my disclaimer here. And it looks like I may have to stop sharing on Facebook Live because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. But so here is our disclaimer. And also, you know, I'm not here to present any securities or anything like that, or any tax or legal advice. So, you know, I always suggest that you seek out those professionals. Okay, looks like my echo is gone now and we can hear each other. All right, and then I always go into a little bit about myself. You know, again, my name is Awanna and everybody calls me Z. I am a retired Navy veteran, and I'm currently working for the DoD as a contracting officer, which is one of the things that kind of interested me in mortgage note investing. And a little bit later on, you'll see why, because it's so similar to what I'm already doing. So I have a master's in education and a master's in public administration, and I've been real estate investing informally for a little over 30 years. Started out like most military folks do. When you move from one duty station to the next, you typically end up renting out a house or, you know, something like that. And then I did that for many years until just in 2018 when I learned about mortgage note investing. And that's when I started my business, Awanna Holdings, and started mortgage note investing. So here are a couple of ways that you can get in touch with me. As you can see, I'm all over the place, so you can't say that you can't find me. So you got them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, website, email, YouTube, all of that good stuff. So keep that information and get in touch with me if you have any questions about anything or want to talk about notes. And so another little thing that I like to do is go into just very basically what the difference between a mortgage note is and actual real estate investing when you're actually out there buying properties. So, you know, if you ever have a mortgage on your home, or if you're buying a home to invest in and flip it, you own the property or you're the borrower. What we do here in mortgage note investing is we like to say that we are the bank because we own your loan, your lien, the lien on your mortgage. So when you took out that mortgage, your mortgage note is secured by the loan from the bank. And when we purchase mortgage notes, we typically purchase them at a discount. Usually it's for the balance of what's owed on your mortgage note, your lien that the bank has on your home. So we own the paper. We're not the owners of the home even then. So most times you don't become the actual owner of the home unless you go through a foreclosure proceeding or something like that, where then you actually own the property. So I just like to make that little bit of a difference clear for people. And actually that'll be a good thing also for Reneika to talk about when her time comes up, about the difference between people investing in their IRAs with mortgage notes and other real estate. So we have a couple of questions coming up on that. And speaking of Reneika, this is Miss Reneika Lightbourne, and she's joining me, and I'm so grateful and thankful that you're joining me from Advanta IRA. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about IRAs, investing in your IRAs. So we're going to put her information up here. And then I believe Reneika has some of her own slides that, you know, she wants to address and maybe talk about, and that's fine too. So I'm going to stop sharing, but since this is being recorded, you can always come back and look at this and get this information. So I'm going to stop sharing, Reneika, and you can either present or just talk or, you know, whatever.
Do share screen as well. Hi, Z. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Happy Tuesday. Thank you to NoVa Notes for just allowing Advanta IRA to participate in today's event. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm just happy we're able to get it scheduled and get it done. Today, we're going to be talking about, you know, being the bank with your IRA, with your self-directed IRA.
That's what we need to know.
Exactly. If you have questions, we'll carve out some time. Feel free to put those in the chat or question box. But we'll definitely allocate some time for to get those answered for you.
Do you want them, if somebody should have a question, do you mind if they
Interject? No, not at all. Nope.
intervene or because I allow my guests to unmute themselves. It's
Please do.
It's easier than trying to type stuff in the chat.
Yeah, feel free to jump in and ask away, and
okay.
if something related to, I'll definitely answer.
Great. So take it.
Just again, I'm Reneika Lightbourne. I'm one of the business development specialists here at Advanta. I've been with Advanta as an employee for a little over 2 years now, but I'm also a client of Advanta for about 4 years. So self-directing is something I personally do. Actually, note investing is something I occasionally do in my IRA. So
that's even better.
Yeah, I've done a couple of JVs through my IRA on some notes. If you have specific questions, again, feel free to interject, ask away. But if you want to do like a deeper dive or tailor it to your scenario, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. I'm happy to help.
Okay.
And then also to check out our website, AdvantaIRA.com. It's a great resource for you. Okay. So very similar to Z, I want to give you just a quick housekeeping in terms of we don't do any tax, legal, or investment advice. Just know that all of the information that we present to you is just educational purposes. So like with any investment, we always encourage you to confer with your professional team, do your due diligence, make sure it's suitable and comfortable for you. So just, 3 key takeaways from today. I mean, if it's relatively new to you, it may be a lot of information all at once, but just high level 3 things to remember. 1, any type of IRA qualifies. Any former employer plan qualifies to be self-directed. 2, the beauty with self-directing is you choose the investment that works for you. So for instance, as note investors, you pretty much get to use your existing skill set to replicate that in your IRA. And then of course, with note investing, it's, passive, but it's still attached to real estate, and we know real estate holds value. And then of course, knowing that all of the interest or profits generated from that investment flow back into your IRA. So just a little history on Advanta and who we are. So we take pride in being recognized as one of the leading self-directed IRA administrators in the industry. We've been in business for nearly 20 years. Our headquarters is in Largo, Florida, which is the general Tampa Bay area. We have an office in Atlanta, which is where I'm located. But we do work with clients nationwide. We actually have clients that use their IRA accounts to invest internationally. So if you wanted to, buy a note overseas, you can certainly do that. We do have nearly $2 billion under our administration, so we're pretty active in that. One of the ways we do set ourselves apart is just making sure that we provide our clients that high-level concierge style service. So meaning, hey, you have an account with us, you'll have a dedicated person there to pretty much help you throughout that process, that investment process. You find the investment, but we're there to guide you through that. And then, of course, our educational platform, again, AdvantaIRA.com, great resource. We do a lot of, internal webinars ourselves, and then, of course, doing events in partnership and speaking engagements like today with NoVa. So exactly what is a self-directed IRA? If this is a new concept to you, very simply just means that you get to decide what is it that your IRA invests in. You have control over the retirement funds. You have control over the investment decisions. You can use IRA funds to pretty much invest in a long list of things. We have clients that use IRA funds to invest in real estate. So whether it's residential, for a fix and flip project, or a buy and hold, or it's short-term rental, you can use it for commercial property, private equities, gold and silver, mineral rights, so forth and so forth. But of course, today we're going to be talking about using it to invest private lending or through notes and mortgages. But you have pretty much a universal list of things that you can do when it comes to your self-directed IRAs. So why do people choose to self-direct? I usually get this question on my initial contact call, like, well, why would someone want to self-direct? You can look to self-direct for any number or combination of reasons. One, it's a new source of capital for you. So for instance, you have an old 401k from a former employer plan, and it's just sitting idle. You can elect to roll those funds over and put it to work and purchase that note, or whatever other investment you want to do, as opposed to tapping into your personal savings or taking out a loan. Another reason is the volatility in the stock market. You know, one day it's up, one day it's down. But again, with real estate, as note investors, that, you know, it's collateralized or tied to real estate, which we know holds value. So that's very appealing. And then, of course, the tax benefits, having those rents, those profits, those dividends flow back into the retirement account, tax-free or tax-deferred, depending on the type of account that you have. And I'll talk about the different account types. But another reason with the tax benefits, let's just say you do a note investment outside of your IRA, then obviously once you sell it, or, you know, you'll pay taxes or gains related to it. But if you do that same investment in your retirement account, you know, if it's a traditional tax deferred, you pay taxes later at retirement when you take it out of retirement. If it's a Roth account, meaning you've already paid taxes, you don't pay any taxes when you take it out at retirement. In terms of the different account types, again, self-directing just means you choose the investment that works for you, but the actual account type is, you know, the same ones that you're already familiar with, like a traditional account, tax deferred, Roth, after tax dollars. If you have a small business, a side hustle, you can self-direct a SEP, simple, or solo 401k. Solo 401k has a lot of flexibilities. A lot of real estate investors like the solo 401k because of the higher contribution limits. And we'll look at the different limits shortly. Again, if you have any former employer plan, whether it's a 401k, 403b, TSP, pension plan, anything like that, you can certainly look to self-direct those as well. Smaller or lesser known accounts, but we've definitely seen an increase in people wanting to participate in that. If you have children, you can self-direct an ESA, so an educational savings account, or, you know, an HSA to cover medical related expenses. HSA is more dependent on having a high deductible plan, but you can certainly, you know, if you have multiple accounts, you can certainly pool funds and partner your accounts to make investments.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm still working for the federal government, and I have a TSP account. So I wouldn't be able to self-direct that until I retired and rolled those funds over, or how would I end up self-directing my TSP?
So most times, if it's a current employer plan and you're not 59 and a half, they would restrict you from moving it. Some plans have exceptions. Yes, some plans have exceptions where they may, you know, allow you to do an in-service rollover portion of it. But most times, if it's a current employer and you're not 59 and a half, then they'll prevent you from moving it. But you can certainly inquire. If you have, like, say, a former employer plan that you rolled over into your new employer plan, then you can move that portion that was from the previous employer.
Mm-hmm. So if I retired next month and I decided that I wanted to take my TSP and roll it over into, I don't know, a SEP IRA, I could do that potentially. Because I'm not 59 and a half yet.
Well, when you're 59 and a half, you can move it without, you know, even if.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. But if it's a former job, then you can move it with.
Yeah, I'm not planning to be there that long. But.
The key thing to remember great question, by the way, the key thing to remember is the different contribution levels. And then with a Roth, your distribution is tax-free at retirement as long as you've had the account for at least 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In terms of the contribution limits, so it varies depending on the account that you have, but if you have a traditional or Roth IRA, you can contribute $6,000 a year if you're under the age of 50. If you're, 50 or older, you can, you have an additional $1,000 catch up to where you can put $7,000 total. For a SEP IRA, again, small business, side business, you can put up to $58,000. Simple IRA, this is where the employee and the employer also can match up to 3%, but you can put $13,500. If you're over the age of 50, you have the additional $3,000 plus catch up.
Is that only for the SEP IRA? Is that only for certain types of entities? Or can it be just like, so I have a solo LLC, a single member LLC, for instance, and let's say I wanted to go and open a SEP IRA, would I be able to do that and make those same contributions?
So yeah, you could be eligible for a SEP or solo 401k. So the solo 401k, you have the same contribution amounts as the SEP, but it may give you more flexibility in terms of, if you wanted to, with a solo 401k, you can take out a loan from it. Not that you want to, but you have that option built in. Also to what's called UDFI, unrelated debt finance income tax, is not applicable to a solo. So real estate investors like that, and I can kind of talk about what that is and how it works.
Okay.
So they both have high contribution limits, but the solo 401k is a little bit more flexible for you.
Okay.
Again, with the solo 401k, you get to contribute twice. Once as the employee, but then also you get to match as profit sharing as the employer. And you can put 58,000 if you're under 50, 64,500 if you're over 50. For ESAs, you can put in 2,000 per child per year, and go out and buy a note or partner together and buy a note. For HSAs, based on having a high deductible plan, if you have an individual plan, you can put $3,600 a year. If you have a family plan, you can put $7,200 a year. So it's pretty advantageous to use a self-directed account and put it to work. In terms of funding the account, so in addition to making an annual contribution, you can look to do a direct rollover of a former employer plan. You would have to initiate that request. We'll tell you exactly, how the check should be titled, where it should go. But you would have to reach out to that former employer plan, telling them that you want to move it over. Mm-hmm. If it's an existing IRA, so whether it's at a brokerage account or a bank, you can move as much or as little as you want to or need to make that investment. Advanta, as the administrator, will actually, initiate that request on your behalf. It's, no tax liabilities to you. The only thing that we ask is whatever dollar amount that you decide you want to move over, and it's not end all be all. You can say, hey, if you have an account at Charles Schwab or Fidelity, maybe it's 50,000, but you only want to move 10,000 to purchase a note, or 20,000, whatever your dollar amount is. You have complete autonomy to decide what amount, but you just want to make sure whatever amount that you do want to move, it's sitting in a cash or money market position, meaning if it's tied up in a stock, you have to tell them sell X amount of shares, so that's available in cash. And then to submit that request, get it moved over, go from there. So you can use a combination of all three if it applies, meaning make a contribution, transfer from an existing IRA, and or roll over from a former employer plan. Okay. So I do want to just really briefly touch on some of the few restrictions that come into play with the self-directed IRA. The only three investments you're not allowed to, according to the IRS, not allowed to make within your IRA is you can't invest in life insurance or collectibles. Collectibles mean anything like antique art, wine, stamps, anything of that nature, and then S Corp. So that's pretty straightforward. The main restriction, this is where we get most of our questions that I want to highlight. The main restriction is who the IRA is not allowed to transact with, or what's considered a prohibited transaction. And the IRA is not allowed to transact with someone who's considered disqualified. That would be you as the account owner, your spouse, any lineal ascendants, meaning parents, grandparents, or any lineal descendants, children, grandchildren, spouses of your children or grandchildren, or any business or entity that's owned or controlled by a disqualified person. So the easiest way to remember or think of it is just, your IRA cannot be on the opposite side of the table from a disqualified person. If you own a note today personally, you can't sell it to your IRA, or you can't take money from your IRA and lend it to your child or your business or your spouse. That's where it becomes prohibited. However, the IRS allows you to partner with anyone, allows the IRA to partner with anyone. So say you want to JV and partner with your IRA to go out and purchase a note or do a real estate deal. If you put an X amount of money and the IRA put an X amount of money, you're both sitting on the same side of the table as buyers. So it's perfectly fine. The key thing to remember with that is whatever the IRA puts in, the IRA gets back. So for simplicity purposes, if you guys are going to invest 20,000 total, meaning you put in 10, the IRA put in 10, well, the IRA is entitled to 50% of the profits. So whether it's rental or interest payment coming back, 50% of that will flow back into the IRA. If there's any expenses associated with the investment, so if you got to pay something to fix up the property, or you got to pay property taxes or something like that, or a service provider, then the IRA will be responsible for its share.
Okay. So when you do something like that, and let's say you have a JV in that account, would the person that you're JVing with also have to be a member, I guess, of that IRA or account holder?
So the IRAs are individual account, but you can structure it different ways. So for instance, say you as a expert with note investing, you could be the person bringing the expertise, or putting your own personal money through your LLC, not necessarily IRA, and then a passive investor who has an IRA can act as a lender to you, to your LLC, to go out and purchase that note. And then whatever terms you guys agree to. So there's different ways you can structure it.
Okay. Okay. I think I understand.
Do you need me to recap?
I guess maybe I didn't pose the question correctly. So, okay, let's say I did do a JV with a lender, you know, another passive investor, and I wanted to invest in it out of an IRA, out of, you know, my Advanta IRA account. Would that lender then have to be a member of Advanta IRA, or would that make them an account holder in joint with me, or they are just my lender?
So if they have an account with Advanta and you have an account with Advanta, you both can, you know, partner together and JV that way, meaning your IRA put in money and their IRA put in money, is perfectly fine. Or if just one of you have an IRA account with Advanta, you can still JV. So
okay. And then it would just be, let's say, out of my IRA account. Yes,
and then whatever terms that you guys have in place, meaning, hey, the IRA lender is going to lend, you know, $20,000 at X amount percent, and it's going to get back whatever monthly payments you guys agree to. So that's the beauty and the power of, I'll do a couple one or two case studies, but that's the beauty of being the bank. You literally get to, you know, pretty much
money out.
Decide.
So, but then IRA, Advanta would be the one sending the checks to my partner or JV partner.
So no, so like say the tenants, whoever has the IRA account, the check from that person or service provider will flow back into Advanta. If it's multiple people, if it's two IRA accounts with Advanta, then one check can come to Advanta and it can be split out. But if it's only one account holder that has an account with Advanta and then someplace else, you want to make sure those funds are split out prior to. So if you're working with a service provider or however it's handled,
Gotcha. Okay, I got you. I'm with you. I'm tracking.
I do want to touch on just really quickly, unrelated debt, finance, income tax. And this only comes into play when real estate's involved, if you were using loan or leverage to purchase, not necessarily through a private lending scenario. But so unrelated debt, finance, income tax, say for instance, 123 Main Street's available for $100,000. Even if you have all of the $100,000 or the money in the IRA account, but you don't want to tie up all of your funds to purchase that property, maybe you just only want to put down a down payment. Let's just say of $20,000. Put down a down payment of $20,000. You go out and take out. It has to be a non-recourse loan, meaning that you're not personally guaranteeing that loan. The only recourse the lender would be to foreclose or take possession of the property if it's not, you know, if the loan's not repaid by the IRA. But let's just say property's $100,000. You put down $20,000. Take out a non-recourse loan for the remaining $80,000. You fix the property up. You sell it, or even if you rent it out, 20% of the profits will flow back into the IRA without any tax liabilities, because that's the amount that you put down through the IRA. The remaining 80% or whatever percent that was leveraged that you used the loan for, that non-recourse loan, will be subject to that UDFI tax, unrelated debt, finance, income tax.
Gotcha.
So that comes into play in an IRA scenario.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
No, I'm good. I'm clear on that.
So we touch on the few things that you can't do in the IRA. We can pivot and now look at, you know, what you can do when it comes to private lending or, you know, notes and mortgages. Your IRA can certainly look to do short-term or transactional funding, whether it's, you know, 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Or we have a lot of investors that actually do longer-term traditional mortgage lending, you know, whether it's 15 years or 30 years. Your IRA can look to be the originator of a note. So in that scenario, you would go out, you have to, you know, find a qualified borrower, just make sure that they're suitable, set the terms. Or if you're going to buy an existing note, you know, maybe you're working with your resources or your contacts or a mortgage broker, buy that existing note from that broker or another investor. You can certainly look to, we have a lot of investors that like, there's performing and non-performing notes. We have a lot of investors that maybe like non-performing just because they can get even deeper discounts. I know you referenced that, you know, you like note investing because you have those discounts. With non-performing notes, get deeper discounts, but also too, you have an opportunity to kind of get that note, you know, kind of get them repaying again and negotiate better terms to have those payments flowing back into your IRA. And then of course, equity participation or joint venture partnership. I've JV'd on a couple notes. So that's certainly an option for you to JV and do deals. Some, you know, the what's the old adage? Your network equals your net worth.
Right,
So definitely.
right. Yes, yes. Yeah, no,
Yeah, the riches are definitely in the relationship. In terms of when it comes to it,
can you go back a little bit?
yes.
It wasn't on here, but you said something earlier in the presentation about investing overseas. How would that work, I guess, in regards to notes? Like, so, you know, I just recently came back from a trip to Belize, and I understand that they have a really great retirement incentives for expats to live over there. So if I were to, let's say, want to buy a note in Belize, how do I know, or how would I go about knowing what that country's laws and rules and things like that were concerning buying property and investing in it out of an IRA?
Great question. You would have to, you know, do your due diligence, check the local laws, maybe work with an agent just to kind of confer, pretty much, you know, get insight on how things operate there. But if your IRA, if you wanted to use your IRA to invest internationally, you certainly can. I literally was just talking to a client yesterday and earlier today about looking to invest in Portugal or Spain. So you would set up your Advanta IRA account, you would fund it. Most times when you're investing overseas, that local jurisdiction, that country may require that you use a local entity. So you would have to set up an LLC local to that area. And then it's still owned by your IRA. You get to act as the manager of that. So you have the authority to sign, you know, write checks, sign any documents and so forth. But the LLC actually owned by your IRA, which is still tax sheltered, would be the entity that's purchasing that property, you know, whether it's a 123 Main Street or it's a note. So you would, you know, obviously check to confirm what their local laws are for a foreign or, you know, your IRA to purchase, but they may require that you use an entity local to their jurisdiction.
Gotcha. So now, is that something that I would consult with Advanta on, an Advanta custodian on, or an attorney, or both?
So we don't assist in terms of setting up the LLC, but we can talk you through the process of what that looks like if you're comfortable doing that. But obviously, we would say confer with your CPA or your, you know, attorney to assist with setting it up. They may require that you use, if you do it internationally, you may have to use a local attorney there or a local professional there to set up the entity itself. We do have a wide list of different resources and professionals we can certainly refer you to, and then of course you decide to select which one that you want to work with.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Thank you. I've been using my own capital to invest in notes, so I've been thinking about, you know, moving over to do the IRA. So that's why it was so timely, and that's why I was kind of stalking you to get you on here to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally trillions of dollars sitting idly in IRA funds. You can be the subject matter expert on how to purchase notes, and the IRA holder can be the one, you know, with the funds or funding the deal. Like they can be the private lender, and you're bringing the deal to the table, and you guys JV. So you can structure it that way. When it comes to actually establishing the note terms, again, just like any bank, if you work into a bank, you know, and you want to, you know, borrow money, your IRA gets to do the same thing in terms of you get to decide, you know, the amount that's going to be borrowed or the amount that, you know, is going to be loaned out. You get to decide what the interest rate, you know, is. You just want to make sure that it's a fair market value, meaning, you know, not lending it out or return of 0% or 1%, because at that point the IRA is not really benefiting.
Who does
so you
that?
want to make sure it's fair market value. And again, too, you get to decide, you know, how the length of terms. Like, okay, is it a note agreement that's, you know, just a year, or, you know, 3 years or 5 years or 30 years? You have complete autonomy over all of that. And two, if it's equity participation on the deal, meaning in addition to getting your, you know, your interest or monthly returns, are you also going to be, you have stake in that physical property? And then of course you want to hash out, you know, the payment date and the delivery address of, are you using a service provider, and then they redirecting any payments to Advanta to be deposited into your account. With our clients, anytime money's deposited into your account, you do get an email notification of that, but also too, you do have access to an online portal with us. So you can kind of log in at any time to view your statements and track those activities. And then some other, you want to consider some other provisions in terms of if there's, you know, late payments or any penalties associated with that. You want to be able to, you know, make sure you, again, dot your I's and cross your T's.
Okay.
So some of the benefits of private lending or, you know, investing in notes is, you know, it's a lot more, you have a lot more autonomy, you know, you have a lot more control. You literally get to be the bank and set the terms. You'll actually know exactly what your IRA is going to get back in terms of, you know, what rate, how fast your IRA is going to grow. A lot of investors are passive investors in terms of with note investing, where it's a lot less liability for you, a lot less hands-on. So that's, you know, that's one reason why a lot of investors like it. And then two, if you have a good, you know, good cash flowing or payment note that's paying, it can be very low maintenance for you. Or if you're working with a really good service provider who's helping, you know, oversee or manage that. And then of course, you know, just the ability to be able to partner your IRA either with yourself or other IRA investors or other investors in general. So I do want to transition just to kind of look at one or two different case studies. The first one obviously is, you know, talking about mortgage lending. So in this scenario, we have Paul. He has $120,000 in his IRA, and he wants, you know, he feels that he should be or wants to get better, more consistent terms, better returns into his IRA. So again, with self-directing, you have to go out and find the investment. You have to do the due diligence. We don't have a list of investments for clients to choose from. In his scenario, he goes out and meet with a private mortgage broker who, you know, has qualified borrowers in place. So it's going to allow him to place his IRA in a first position. I know there's first lane, second lane position with mortgages, but he's able to find a qualified borrower through his mortgage broker and putting his IRA in first position. So it's his responsibility, again, to do the due diligence, make sure he's comfortable with the borrower, make sure he's comfortable with the actual property itself. But ultimately for this, he's agreed, he's the bank, his IRA is the bank, so he gets to decide, hey, I'm going to lend $120,000 to this borrower. The interest rate that he wants back is 8%. It's going to be a 5-year balloon, and his monthly payments are $800, and it's secured by the actual property to where, okay, if anything happens, he can foreclose and take possession of that asset. So the process, first and foremost, with Paul, he would go through and open up his Advanta account with us. That's pretty straightforward. We streamline that for him in terms of, you know, filling out everything online. He'll be assigned an account manager. He'll fund this account, but also too, you know, he's going to make sure that he finds the loan, work with a mortgage broker if that's his route, and then analyze the terms. They'll negotiate, and he decide, okay, whatever terms is going to be outlined in the note agreement. He's going to work very closely with his account manager, his dedicated person at Advanta, to, you know, kind of inform Advanta of what he's intending to do, what the note agreement is. Before anything happens, no money moves until you give consent. So in this scenario, Paul's going to be able to read and approve, give his consent. Once he does that, then Advanta will go ahead and, after getting his approval, send the $120,000 from his IRA account over to the closing agent that's handling that closing for that note. And then Advanta will actually receive the actual the mortgage note just for record keeping. And then in that scenario, the investment is complete. But during that time after closing, the borrower is going to be setting the monthly.
Can you back up just a second?
I sure can.
Yeah. So it says the mortgage is recorded and the note and mortgage are sent to Advanta.
Document.
But I wanted to make it clear that the note investor is the one doing the recording.
So in this case, the IRA is the investor, not the individual.
Oh, so Advanta would be doing the recording?
No, it's going to be, the titling would be Advanta IRA FBO, which is for benefit of whoever the person is. So in this case, if it's, you know, Paul Jones, is going to be Advanta IRA FBO Paul Jones, because it lets the IRS know Paul as the individual is not making this investment. Paul's IRA is making this investment. So the document will be titled in his IRA. And because it's being by his IRA, Advanta as the administrator, as the record keeper, is going to hold on to that document.
Right. No, I got that part. But so typically, so as an investor, mortgage investor, my company would be responsible for recording the actual mortgage and the note. So what I guess what I'm questioning is Advanta, since
No,
they are
so
the administrator, are they going to handle the recording?
so do you use a service provider for your notes? Like, yeah, so whoever's the closing agent or service provider recorded, Advanta will just receive the actual note itself, like
Make that clear. Okay. Trying to make that clear. Okay.
Good for clarifying that. And then again, the borrower's going to go ahead and send the monthly payments back to Advanta, or if it's a service provider, they'll redirect that to Advanta to be deposited into Paul's account. And then of course he'll be able to, again, he'll get email notification, but he can log in at any time to view those activities. And then in his scenario, 3 years later, the borrower decides they want to sell the house. Paul's going to get his original $120,000 principal at the sale. And then of course, during that time, his IRA made $28,000 with interest payments for that 36-month time frame. And then of course, because he made this investment in his IRA, he doesn't pay any taxes on the money that he made over that time frame, and now he can literally rinse and repeat. So that's the beauty of it: rinse and repeating, having those profits flow back into the retirement account. If it's a traditional account, it's tax deferred, but you don't pay taxes until you retire at 59.5. It's a Roth account. Again, it just accrue until you take it out at 59.5, and you've had the Roth account for at least 5 years, and it's tax free at that point.
Right. So vice, if I'm just using my own capital like I am now, that $28,000 in interest would be taxed as ordinary income.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a huge thing. Like, remember, not related to note investing, but the power of self-directing. So Peter Thiel has been in the news for the past, I think, 2 or 3 weeks about how large his Roth IRA account is, being $5 billion. He started with, so Peter Thiel, he's a billionaire.
I was about to say, is there a limit? That I guess not.
He's a savvy investor. His thing is he invests in startup and private companies. But he started with $1,700, and now it's $5 billion. So for you as a note investor, again, you get to use your existing skill set. You know how to buy notes and rinse and repeat that process. By the time you reach retirement, the sky's the limit. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So case study number 2 is just talking about equity partnership. Again, you can JV in network. The riches literally are in the relationship, so you want to cultivate that. One of the books I'm reading right now is called Click by Dr. George Fraser, and it's talking about the powers of cultivating relationships, making sure that you cater to those key those extraordinary relationships. I would definitely encourage you to check that out.
Okay.
So in this scenario, we have Andrea and Steve. They want to do a joint venture partnership. Andrea has $150,000 in her IRA. She's interested in just JVing on a real estate deal. So it's her responsibility to do her due diligence. She knows Steve from the local RIA group, and he's looking for funding for his real estate project. Again, she decides she wants to partner with him after checking everything out. She's comfortable with that. The real estate is actually going to be used as collateral. He's also going to put some of the funds down. Again, Andrea has autonomy in terms of the loan agreement and how much she's willing to lend. So her and Steve are going to work through that to decide, this is the loan amount, this is the terms, this is the rate. So she decided $125,000, 5%, because this is a JV. She wants equity participation with a 2-year balloon. So she's going to get monthly payments of $520 back while in first position, so she's still protected. And then, of course, she's going to work with her attorney to prepare the actual note and mortgage agreement. She's going to read and approve everything, making sure that her I's cross the T's. And then at that point, Advanta will then, send the money to Steve to make the investment. And then, of course, Advanta holds that note agreement that's drawn up between them. In terms of the actual payoff, Steve, he does what he's supposed to do. He picks up the property, he sells it for $200,000 after closing, and then of course he requests a payoff of that actual note from Andrea. So she's the loan service provider. She pays up the loan, and then of course her IRA actually gets to her $125,000 back in principal. In addition, she got monthly payments of $3,000. She also, because she structured a deal to where she get equity participation on the deal, she's going to get 25% of the profits. So her total earnings is $28,000. Again, because she made this investment in her IRA, that $28,000 flows back without any tax liabilities. And then for Steve, he wanted a loan. He got the loan of $125,000. He was able to sell the property for $200,000. He was able to repay, the original amount back plus the interest back to Andrea's IRA. And for his earnings, $47,000. Again, they can rinse and repeat. So there's different ways you can structure and partner.
That's pretty cool.
So that pretty much, yeah, it's very, very powerful. That pretty much covers my 2 case studies, but I just want to kind of recap really quick in terms of getting started with Advanta. We really streamline that process for you, keep it as simple as possible. Step 1, first and foremost, you fill out the appropriate paperwork to open your account. You'll have someone like myself on the front end assisting you with getting that account open. But then once your account is open with us, you have an assigned person who's there to help you when you're ready to make your investment. Step 2 is funding your account. So you have the 3 different options, or you can use a combination of rolling funds over from that former employer plan, transferring from that existing IRA, or making a cash contribution, or a combination of all 3. And then finally, step 3, start investing. What is it that you want to invest in? You literally have a blank canvas. If note investing, notes and mortgages is your thing, whether you're a passive investor or you're actively, you get to decide what works best for your IRA.
So when people are investing, let's say in notes, for instance, since that's what we're talking about, typically, a lot of those transactions need to move fairly quickly after you've done your due diligence and all of that. So what is the typical time frame for a note to be funded? So let's say I have a note, that I want to buy. I've done all my due diligence and all that stuff, and maybe I have a JV and we got the agreement together, and now I'm like, okay, the funds need to be there, within, I don't know, 5 days or however long it takes. What's the typical time frame on something like that?
Great question. That's one of the things that we at Advanta are known in the industry to be in terms of being very responsive. Our turnaround time is very quick. We can get your account open within 24 to 48 business hours. The account funding, that usually can take the longest depending on where the funds are coming in. But let's just say you proactively, set up your account, it's open, the money is funded, and you identified a note. If you're doing that investment directly within the IRA, we can get those funds out to you same day or next day, depending on, when you requested it. But we're pretty responsive in terms of our turnaround time. I didn't highlight it using the checkbook control feature, so I'll just talk through what it is and how it works. Okay, but a lot of investors like the checkbook control feature just because you get, literally, you control the purse strings. We're very responsive, but at least with checkbook control, you literally can write a check, pay a bill, sign a contract. So the process would be, first and foremost, you set up your Advanta account. You temporarily fund your account with Advanta, meaning the funds only sit with us temporarily. You would take the initial steps of the additional steps of setting up an LLC. You don't own the LLC, but you're the manager of that LLC. The LLC is owned by your IRA, so you get to decide what state you want to open up that LLC. You get to decide, what you're going to name that LLC, and then you list yourself as manager, or whoever else you're comfortable with. But you list yourself as manager. You can do it, or you can have your attorney or your CPA assist you, but you would draft an operating agreement. That operating agreement document is going to show the IRS that it's actually, this LLC is owned by your IRA. So again, when this LLC goes out and purchases a note, don't come after you personally because you don't own it. You're the manager of it, you control it, but it's owned by a tax-sheltered retirement account. Advanta, as the administrator, will sign that operating agreement document on behalf of the IRA. You still have to read and approve, give your consent, again, because nothing happens until you say it does. Once you do, Advanta will then issue a check in the name of that new LLC that you just opened up, that you're the manager of, but it's owned by your IRA. Give you that check, or we can send it electronically once you identify which bank you want to open up, a bank account for that LLC. Deposit those funds, and now you literally have checkbook control. You have control of those funds, meaning you see a note today, you literally can write a check the second. You do want to be mindful, same rules apply. Money leaving that account, that LLC's bank account is for your retirement. Money coming back in is for the profits or returns from that investment. Mm-hmm. But fits and flippers, tax-paying investors, note investors, they love it.
open a separate LLC for each note that they're doing, or each real estate project, or do, you know, so like if I just open one in Awanna Holdings, I'm investing my notes all out of Awanna Holdings, but then I wanted to open up another LLC. Obviously, I would have to open up another Advanta account for that, or
So you would
things separated.
So you have complete discretion on, you know, if you want to keep them in one LLC or separate. What you can do is you would open up a brand new LLC that your IRA owns, not an existing LLC that you have, but you would open up your IRA funded, open up the new LLC. What you can, I've had clients do this where they open up a holding. The IRA actually has a, they open up a holding LLC within the IRA. And then within that holding company, they're going to have multiple LLCs, meaning they have an LLC for Note 1, Note 2, 123 Main Street, and just keep it separate that way. If you want to, you know, you want to be able to separate your assets in that way. You have complete discretion on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So a question for you, Reneika. This is Jessica. Hi, learning a lot. I feel like I need to back this up and get IRA 101 courses. So I'm going to look up the training and the info sessions that you all have. So I have an existing LLC. So you're telling me that I would need to open a new or create a new LLC in order to use a self-directed IRA.
Yes, if you wanted to use the LLC feature with your IRA account, it has to be a brand new or separate LLC. Remember, one of the few restrictions that the IRS has in place is prohibited transaction, meaning if you own something personally, if you own that LLC personally, you can't sell it over or transfer it over to your IRA because opposite sides of the table.
Got it. I remember that. Okay.
But wouldn't we still own the LLC, the new LLC that we're opening?
No, remember, you're going to list yourself as manager. So it's going to be manager manage.
Okay.
The operating agreement document is going to show that your IRA is the actual owner.
Gotcha. Okay.
But nothing happens until you say it does, meaning you control everything. You control the purse strings, but you're not technically the owner. Your IRA is the owner.
The IRA.
So the operating agreement document is going to show Advanta IRA FBO, which is for benefit of your first and last name or your account number as the owner. And that indicates to the IRS, hey, this LLC is a tax shelter. It's owned by a tax shelter account.
Tracking now. Okay.
Great question.
Is that across industry? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so that's across the board. That's not specific to Advanta. That's
okay.
How all of them work.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think.
So if you want to, I know it's a lot of information all at once, but if you want to do a deep dive or you want to talk, you know, like different scenarios, give me a call, send me an email. We can allocate time. This is what I do all day, every day. I love what I do. We can literally, you know, I've sat where you're sitting in terms of, hey, doing your due diligence, asking questions.
Right.
Before I opened my account, it took me a couple of months, and you know, at Advanta, our focus is quality of service, is not, you know, more so like, hey, do your account today.
Right.
We have clients that like, you know, this is what they want to do, so they do it. But you can take as much time or call in and ask as many questions as you need to want to. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable, you're knowledgeable about what is it that that you're doing. And then that's also too why we have a dedicated person to you to help you. And we can't give you tax or legal or investment advice, but we can kind of rehash and clarify, hey, these are the IRS rules and restrictions, or if you were doing this type of investment, these is how, you know, scenarios of how it could work.
Well, the beautiful thing about that is you're a note investor yourself, so you can relate. That's like great right there. So are most of the other custodians there at Advanta also note investors, or
You mean clients?
Clients out of their IRAs as well?
We have clients that invest in a lot of different things. Obviously, real estate is the most prevalent. But yeah, I would assume most have some type of note, whether it's just, you know, just straight out private lending, passive investor, or actual note from a mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I don't think I don't see any more questions, but Reneika, I want to thank you so much. Oh, you can leave your contact information up there.
Yes.
I know did we put it up at the, yeah, I put it up in the beginning on my slides, but you can go ahead and keep yours up there. So please go ahead and reach out to Reneika so she can give you some good information and answer all your questions on self-directed IRAs and Advanta IRAs. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you, likewise.
I may have to give you a call tomorrow for real.
Yeah, we can talk through, just let me know. I'll look like something's, okay. You're welcome, Jessica, thank you.
Just saying thank you, okay.
I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it
Right.
back over to you.
We're good, that's it. So like I said, thank you very much, I appreciate
Thank
it. You enjoy, we'll be talking.
Likewise.
All right, bye everybody.